Raider Nation, thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Betway. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
All right, Heidi, is it time to panic yet? I don't know. Let's talk it through. This is our weekly Raiders therapy session, so let's get it started.
Today on the show, we will be talking about a game that was truly a game of two halves, as the Arizona Cardinals came back from a 20-0 first-half deficit to defeat the Las Vegas Raiders 29-23 in overtime, and drop the Raiders to now 0-2 on the young season.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, good or bad, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
After the Raiders jumped out to a 20-0 lead in the first half, quarterback Kyler Murray of the Cardinals led the massive comeback for the visiting team. Murray finished the game with 277 passing yards, 28 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception.
And, of course, we'll talk in more detail about this, and how you and I discussed this earlier. I don't mean to take anything away from Kyler Murray. He is a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's a quarterback with immense skills as far as arm talent and also with his legs. But you just cannot keep giving a guy like that chance after chance after chance. It's going to come back to bite you, and in this case, it certainly did.
Man, you mentioned something about panicking. I don't know. I'm starting to panic a little bit. I really am. And, Kyler Murray, yes, he's a good quarterback. Yeah, whatever. But I really hate losing to him. I almost hate losing to him as much as Patrick Mahomes. Really do. There's just something about his attitude that I just hate it.
Well, I get that. Part of it was because he received Offensive Rookie of the Year over Josh Jacobs. And this was a man who was playing on a 5-8-1 team his rookie year and still got Offensive Rookie of the Year, despite the fact that Josh Jacobs was having a massive year and should have gotten it. So, yeah, I'm kind of like you. I hate losing to him because of that very fact.
And you know what I really hated? Was that one play where he ran around for 20 seconds and then ran it in. Oh, man, that one just burned me. Burned my tail.
I saw on social media, and I hadn't gone through the exact times, but the Raiders had a 3-and-out, in which their total time of possession was 23 seconds, which was just 3 seconds more than that entire run by Kyler Murray on that one play.
It just torqued my tail. It really did. Because, he like bobbed in there. His head's bobbing in there like he's, better than us or something. And, well, you can't really argue with it because that play, he was better than us. So, oh well.
It reminded me of back when I was in elementary school, we used to go out to recess and one of our teachers would play quarterback and he would stand back there and throw the ball. We weren't allowed to touch him. So he would sit back there and sit back there and sit back there until somebody got open. And it could be 20, 30 seconds, a minute. And everybody, eventually somebody would get open. It kind of reminded me of that because he just stood back there forever.
Well, and then that one play where Max Crosby almost had him, and then they called that penalty on Roderick Teamer, and that was a really, really ticky-tack penalty that they called. I couldn't stand that either. That ticked me off.
And then they had another one where Crosby actually got a sack negated because of another holding call downfield.
I know. Every time the Raiders did something good, the refs took it away.
They really did a number.
Josh Jacobs was more active against the Cardinals than he was versus the Chargers in Week 1. Jacobs carried the ball 19 times for 69 yards and contributed with some good blocking in the backfield. And quarterback Derek Carr was only sacked once during the game.
I really thought when Jacobs carried for the first time, I thought, okay, now this is the game where he's going to break out and really be utilized. Not only in both the run game, but also in the screen game. I thought both he and Amir Abdullah were really going to be used a lot more than they were. Jacobs really handled the ball well when he got touches. I just thought, particularly late in the game, when they could have run a little bit more, I just thought the play calling was out the window, and I thought we were back to Greg Knapp play calling. It's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Chargers game. Where did the run go? Where did my running game go? It's disappeared into the wild blue yonder.
And all I can think about, but I can't think of the movie now, but Schneider going, "Oh no, we suck again."
Well, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
All right, speaking of Derek Carr, the Raiders quarterback finished the game going 25 for 39 for 251 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Additionally, he connected on a pass with 7 different players. However, almost all the success occurred just in the first half.
And maybe it was just me, but I thought that Derek was really off at a lot of his passes. There were a couple that were really good, but I don't think he had any really good, pretty laser passes or lob passes like he had in week 1. It just seemed like he was off. The timing was off with his receivers. It looked like Davante Adams was getting frustrated. There were a couple that were in the ground or overthrown or just not really in sync with everything. And I'm not sure whether that was a design play call, whether Derek was just getting happy feet because of the rush, whether he felt he got blindsided early in the game. He was sacked on the second play of the game, and I wonder if that was working into his mind. But he just did not seem like he had control of the offense yesterday. We're recording on Monday, so we're talking about Sunday's game. But he just did not seem like he had command of the situation.
Yeah, and, last week after the Chargers game, I wanted him to spread it around a little bit more, not just go to Davante Adams. But I would have liked for him to go to Davante Adams a little bit. Yes, Adams did have that touchdown, but really, Carr completely went away from him the entire game. And, there came a point where even the announcers were saying, okay, you've got this stud. You need to force the ball to him and just let him play and show what he can do. And Carr just wasn't doing it. It was like he was in a different ball game. His head just wasn't there the entire game.
Yeah, he only had 2 receptions. And like you said, maybe the noise was in his ear that he needed to spread it around a little more, but you've got to go to your guy. That's the guy that the offense is really going to run through this year, or should run through, for obvious reasons. He's one of, if not the best receivers in the game. You have to feed him the ball.
Yeah, and dance with the one that brung you, dance with the one that got you there.
Plus, all Davante's family was there for the first time, seeing him play like freaking ever. And I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity for Carr to hook up with him several times, and he did get the touchdown, but very few and far between were the chances that he got.
Yeah, and I'm giving Carr a really rough time right now, for the entire game. But I have to say, for the Raiders themselves, that first half was almost flawless football. I don't want to negate what they were able to do. They looked really good. And it was definitely the tale of 2 halves. Second half, that team just disappeared.
Yeah, the Cardinals' defense is not a good defense, and the Raiders showed that. They exploited everything they needed to, and they pretty much had their way with the Cardinals in the first half. Got to credit Cliff Kingsbury for making adjustments at halftime. It seems like the Raiders did not. And I heard talk out of the locker room later, this is from Josh Jacobs and several others, that there were some guys in the locker room who felt, okay, well, we have this game in the bag. We don't need to really continue to put the foot on the gas, and that cost them.
Yeah, you can't do that. Those players are in the NFL for a reason. They're good players. Even the worst players in the NFL are pretty damn good players. And you don't give them a chance to come back, because they are going to take advantage of it. They're professionals, and they will come back and they will haunt you. The Cardinals were only 3 of 13 on third down conversions, but went 3 for 5 on fourth down conversions. The Raiders' defense also gave up 4 first downs on penalties, which allowed the Arizona offense to stay on the field for most of the second half.
Now, we talked about penalties. Now, they only had 3 last week. And, of course, they ran a pretty clean preseason, but it seems like that there were a lot of ticky-tack fouls that were called. I know that there were several penalties that could have been called holding penalties against or on, Max Crosby, and also on the other side, Cleve Furl was held several times as well, and they missed those calls or just turned a blind eye away from them. So, like we always had this conspiracy theory about the refs working their will against the Raiders. Well, it seemed to really happen now. Now, they did call penalties against the Cardinals as well, but it seemed like the timeliness of the penalties that were against the Raiders caused the defense to give up those first downs on penalties and just happened in really, really crucial situations. And that just can't continue. We have to cut down on the penalties, and if they are going to happen, they can't happen in those situations that they did that really cost the team.
Yeah, but some of those penalties, they were so ticky-tack. Especially that one on Roderick Teamer. That one, he brushed up against the receiver with a feather, and they called him for defensive holding. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, not much I could say. Even the announcers were saying that's kind of suspect. I was listening to the broadcast with Adam Archuleta, former defensive back. And of course, he's going to call it from a defensive back standpoint. And even he said, that's a real ticky-tack foul. That's one that you could let them play, particularly if it's away from the ball, away from the play, and not even go in that direction.
Yeah, that one ticked me off. Oh, well. Okay.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. Okay. I'm okay. Since our last podcast, and mostly because of recent injuries, the Raiders have made the following roster moves. Cornerback Anthony Averett was placed on injured reserve last week. Safety Matthias Farley was reverted to the practice squad, and defensive tackle Kyle Pico was released from the practice squad. Wide receiver Keelan Cole was signed to the active roster. Wide receiver DJ Turner was placed on injured reserve, and both center Billy Price and cornerback Nicole Roby-Coleman were signed and placed on the practice squad. Then, last Friday, wide receiver Chris Lacey was added to the practice squad, and wide receiver Dylan Stoner was placed on the practice squad injured list. The day before the Cardinals game, reserve offensive lineman Alex Bars and safety Matthias Farley were activated from the practice squad. And I got through all of that without really.
You did. And the two glaring things that were there with all the moves, and we've been sitting there waiting, wondering if, number one, they were going to bring in a free agent offensive tackle, or if they were going to bring in, namely, Ndamukong Suh for the defensive line. Neither things have happened. And, of course, we don't know if they're making plans to bring either of those things in, make good on those holes that we have for the team right now. But we just continue to hear nothing on either of those fronts. From all things that I gather, Carmen Brasillo's happy with the group that he's got, but the group that he's got needs some help, whether it's a dynamic playmaker or somebody else just adjusting very quickly. I know they like their draft pick out of Ohio State. Help me with his name there, Heidi. Our 7th rounder. It's just totally skipped my mind here. Mumford, absolutely. Why would I forget Mumford? The development of Mumford, and he's jumped in pretty quickly, but he still needs some help. He's young, and of course, it's a young line. Of course, we had to move Parham in at center. I made the prediction earlier that Parham was probably going to take over for Andre James at center before the season ended. I didn't know that he was going to have to jump in week 2 because of injury, but there you go.
And you know what? He held his own. He actually did okay. I don't really have a lot to say against the offensive line after this game. For the most part, they held it together. And I thought that they were greatly improved over game 1. Now, part of that could have been the opponent as well. the level of the Chargers defense. It was probably at a much higher level than the Cardinals defense, but they held it together. And I can't say that I can really criticize them all that much after the Cardinals game.
Well, plus, I think they did a lot less shifting around. There was a ton of shifting around against the Chargers. And in order to have that stability, in order to have that fluidity with the line, you have to just get 5 guys and have them work together. I think that happened a lot more against the Cardinals. I hope it will continue to happen more against the Titans and going further. But the only way for this line to gel is to get 5 guys and just go with them.
I think it was a matter of they had to keep 5 guys in there to gel because they didn't have any more players to put out there.
True, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the first half because the Raiders were able to jump out and show some good things. Let's at least acknowledge that.
All right, now when Carr was sacked on the second play of the game, I was thinking to myself, oh no, here we go again. But then the offense turned around and they converted on a 3rd and 11. Shout out to Mac Hollins. And they continued the drive, and they got it into the end zone. Now, defensively in the first half, the Raiders forced 2 punts and then got the interception by Meek Robertson. So they held the Cardinals in check for the first half. I felt about as good as I could feel by halftime, although I wish that one of those 2 field goals had also been a touchdown. But seeing both Waller and Devontae Adams with touchdown catches during the first half, that was a good thing.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about the first half, too. And the one thing I did like about those 2 field goals was that Josh McDaniels did not give up at the end of the half this time. He actually realized, hey, I have a field goal kicker who can make it from 55 yards very easily. I should probably drive down and give him a shot. And he actually did that this time, so I was happy. The fact that the Raiders were able to get 2 touchdowns, hey, it might not sound like a lot, but that's a pretty big victory for them. So as far as the first half goes, I thought the Raiders did pretty good. The defense looked good. The offense looked good. It was humming. Like you said, Derek didn't look like he was necessarily really on, but everything was going together and working so well, he didn't have to be elite either.
2 touchdowns and 2 field goals in the first half. I will take that any day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah. And, if we could have just combined our first half this week with our second half of week 1, we would have won both games.
Yeah, if we could just replicated either quarter 1 or quarter number 2 an additional time, we get to come out 2-0 instead of 0-2.
Yeah, definitely. So what happened in the second half?
All right, now in the second half, Cliff Kingsbury and the Arizona Cardinals made adjustments, and the Raiders just did not. The Cards put their full faith and trust in their superstar Kyler Murray, and he brought them back from that large deficit. The Raiders had 4 offensive possessions in the second half, and they ran a total of only 19 plays. Meanwhile, the Cards had to punt on their first possession in the second half. Then they had an 11-play drive to score a touchdown. Then a 9-play drive, which only ended because they couldn't make a 4th down conversion. Then touchdown drives of 9 plays, 54 yards. And then the final drive in regulation, which was 18 plays for 73 yards and used up the last 4:43 of the game clock. Then the Raiders' only turnover of the game in overtime resulted in a walk-off loss via defensive recovery and return for touchdown. This was a bad loss, no matter how you look at it.
I have no words. This is the second week in a row they've left me speechless.
There's one thing I want to say. It's amazing to me that the Raiders only ran 1 more play in the entire second half than the Cardinals did on that final drive of theirs, which was 18 plays, 73 yards. That's just incredible to me.
The Raiders' defense was on the field for 51 plays. And they were exhausted in overtime, and they actually came up with a big stop.
Well, in that the 51 plays doesn't even count that 20-plus second 2-point conversion.
Yeah. And I got to hand it to the defense. They came up with that stop. They came up with that stop in overtime, and they let the Raiders' offense get in position where they could win the game. And then we were also talking about, on that final play, Renfrow wasn't even the best option for Carr to look at. What did you see on that play?
Yeah, they were really close to within field goal range. I mean, Carlson probably could have kicked from where they were at, but they wanted to get a few extra yards. Now, the play that was called, I understand it, that it was originally a run play, and Derek audibled the play and called a pass to Renfro. Now, the amazing thing to me here is that when Renfro, off the snap of the ball, took a couple steps and then circled back to the line of scrimmage, if you're trying to advance the ball a little bit to get your field goal kicker some more room, you either want to run the ball, or on the right-hand side, you had both Mac Hollins and Darren Waller kind of split a little bit, but there were 7-8 yards of cushion between the nearest cover guy and them. So if you do a quick hit pass to either one of those, they're going forward. At the very worst, they pick up 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, but they also keep it in the middle of the field for Carlson. So I definitely thought that if there was going to be a checkout play, if there was going to be a pass, it would have been to one of those two guys. Both big targets, both right there, and both uncovered. That's your play. I know you want to go to Renfro. I know he's your clutch guy, but if you're going to do that, you send him over the middle. You send him across in the middle and through that zone. And you don't have him curl around with his back to the quarterback going away from the play. It just didn't make any sense at all.
And that's Carr for you.
I have you at a loss of words.
Yeah, it's a loss of words. I didn't come down very hard on Carr after that first game because I said, he's a professional, he's a good quarterback, and he is going to bounce back from it. But after this game against the Cardinals, I'm kind of speechless about him. I mean, I blame him for losing that first game. That first game was on him. This game, I can't completely blame on him, but man, the offense just completely disappeared in the second half. And the offense is led by the quarterback. And I got to wonder, what are you thinking, Derek? Is your head in it enough to actually win some games, or are you checked out? Are you checked out this year?
Mr. Carr and I are going to have a little chat during T3's Top 3.
Okay. Well, how about we listen to a little bit of that T3's Top 3? Why don't you enlighten us?
T3's Top 3.
All right, let me take a deep breath. Let's flush all the negative as much as we can out of our system here for just a moment. And let's go into another edition of T3's Top 3. Number 1, after a nearly flawless preseason in terms of penalties, the Raiders committed 10 penalties for 68 yards. 4 of those penalties resulted in first downs for the opposition. I felt like I was seeing some of the Raiders teams of old out there, and I mean the bad old, not the good old. Number 2, on their first possession of the second half, Carr threw an incomplete pass to Renfro on second down, setting up a 3rd and 9. Carr then completed a pass to Waller, but for only 7 yards. Was this a bad route, a bad play call, or simply poor execution? In any event, this 3 and out to start the half is where I thought the Raiders truly started to lose the momentum. And number 3, I have defended Derek Carr time after time after time. Now, I still say he's a good quarterback, but now I'm beginning to question if he has what it takes to lead this team going forward. I am predicting another loss by the Raiders this coming weekend. I hope I'm wrong. Derek's going to have to prove to me that he truly is the guy to step up and get this team where it needs to go. 2 quarters of good football out of 8 is just not getting the job done. For me, this week is Derek Carr's make or break week. And that is this week's Top 3.
I have to agree. Preseason was nearly flawless. However, the starters don't play during preseason. The NFL has gone away from that. I'm a big critic of that. I understand that starters can get injured if they play in the preseason. However, if you do not play the starters in the preseason, you end up with the first 4 weeks of the regular season looking like the preseason. And we are seeing that case in point with the Raiders. And it's not just the Raiders, it's with every team. But it's enough to really piss me off sometimes because, come on, I don't want to wait until week 5 to see good football. And right now, what we're doing is we're watching preseason. I know preseason's down to only 3 games now, but still, the first 3 games of the season are going to be preseason games because the players just aren't playing. They're not getting the rust knocked off them. And so that's something you're gonna hear me complain about until they decide to change things back. So, sorry. I'll stop complaining about that once they start playing real football. First possession of the second half, Carr threw an incomplete pass to Renfrow on second down, setting up the 3rd and 9. That is something that Carr has been doing for 9 years. Throwing the ball short of the line to gain. Now, is that bad routes? Is that bad play calling? I don't know. But it's something that we've seen a lot out of him. And it's something that I'm getting tired of seeing. And I also have defended him time after time after time again. And I do say he is a good quarterback. But I don't know if he's gotten enough out of his head to lead this team. He might need that greener pasture. And it's early in the season to be saying he needs to go somewhere else. But you know what? He's playing really bad for this early in the season. So I don't know if it's just that, he doesn't have any chance to play in the preseason and they're still putting the team together. I don't know if it's that. But he's making mistakes that he shouldn't make. It's his 9th season. He should be past some of these mistakes. Last week I was saying, or I was thinking, I don't know if I actually said it on the show or not, but it's something that he'll grow out of. Well, you have grown enough, Carr. Get with it. I'm tired of defending you. And I know that he is just as hard on himself as the fans are. But it doesn't matter sometimes how hard he is on himself. What matters is what he's able to do to get out of it. And right now, he's not getting out of it. He's stuck in his head, and it's just, he's stuck there. And he's not leading the team to victory. Lead the team to victory. Make us all shut up. Make me shut up. I want you to make me shut up. Come on, Carr.
And he's got the arsenal to do it. He's got probably one of the best arsenals that a Raider offense has ever had, going all the way back to Stabler. But he's just got to make it work.
I would say he has one of the best arsenals the league has seen in 20 years.
I would agree.
All right, give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number or send in a message via social media and we'll share your thoughts. And we had a message come in through social media over the summer.
We did. We had one that came in from Scotland, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and of course, I was on a social media hiatus, so I didn't check the messages. But I did check them now, and we thought it was a pretty great message. What did it say, T3?
So here it is. Hello, Heidi, Tom, and Homer. We hope Homer rejoins us at some point. We're still waiting to hear back from him. But again, he said, congratulations on your 100th episode. Really enjoyed listening today. Missed you guys. Really can't wait for the new season to start. Between the fantastic appointments, Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, who brought a pure freshness to the Raiders with their positive vibe and go-for-it attitude and player recruiting and coaching, and the appointment of Sandra Douglas Morgan, who sounds like pure class, intelligence, who all hopefully bring their A game to the silver and black. I'm absolutely stoked for the season's kickoff. We already had the spine of a team with the players on the roster to make the playoffs, but now with the addition of Adams, Chandler Jones, and others, and our picks, and hopefully another couple of players, one on the O-line, a wide receiver for cover, and just to be greedy, a help on defensive back in the backfield. Honestly, I really think that all things happen for a reason. We've gone through COVID and the anticlimax of our opening season in Las Vegas and the sacking of Gruden to get to this point. We weren't ready. Now we're almost fully loaded and ready to unleash and rip this league up, even right till February. If ever a fan base deserves the joy of seeing that tool Goodell hand over a Lombardi to a Davis while we raise the middle finger in celebration, it's us, the Raider Nation. I can't wait. Bring it on. Anywho, great to hear you all back. Enjoy the season. Your man in Glasgow, Scotland, John, Damage Inc., proud members of the Raider Nation in Scotland.
All right. Thanks, John. We love you. You are awesome.
Please send us more messages. We want to read those or give us a call. We'd love to hear your voice.
Yeah. I love hearing from John.
Yeah.
I love it. He's a great guy, great fan. One of the guys that just really makes it fun to record this podcast.
John, if you call in, leave a message, we'll create a segment for you. How about that? We'll do that.
Yeah, kind of how T3 ended up on the show. We created a segment for him, and all of a sudden, bam, he was here.
We can make it happen.
Yeah. All right, T3, and what is going on with Raider Roots this week?
All right, now this week we'll revisit the hangover that happened in the year after Super Bowl 37. Now, since we're already experiencing a hangover after the loss to the Cardinals, I guess we'll just stay in that mode as we make our way through the 2003 season.
All right, sounds good. And why don't we find out what we do or we don't know?
All right, it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and our entire listening audience a Raiders-related question with a list of answers to choose from. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. Here's this week's question. Heidi, I feel certain you're going to get this one right. Who was the youngest man to take over as head coach of the Las Vegas/Los Angeles/Oakland Raiders? Was it A, John Madden? Was it B, Lane Kiffin? Or C, Josh McDaniels?
Okay, I know it's not Josh McDaniels because he's an old dude. And I know that John Madden was the youngest at the time, but that was a long time ago. I am quite certain it was Lane Kiffin because he was like the youngest pup to take over as head coach of any team for a long time. I think that honor has finally been taken by somebody else, but I'm pretty sure that Lane Kiffin is the answer for the youngest for the Raiders.
You are correct. Lane Kiffin was 31 years and 8 months. He is the second youngest of all active or coaches now. He's not active anymore. He's back in college, but of head coaches that were appointed, he is now second in terms of youngest. McVay is now number one on that list. But you got it right. There you go.
All right. I am totally on a roll.
You're on fire. I'm not being as cruel to you as I had been either, so.
I appreciate that. That's been very nice of you. You didn't even have to give me the hints.
I've been trying to be a little more selective and get you on a little win streak. Maybe that mojo can rub off on the Raiders here. They can start a little win streak of their own now.
Yeah, I've won 3 weeks in a row, so let's see if on week 3 they can actually win a game.
There we go. Love it.
Neither of us are too hopeful, but, it could happen.
We need to start somewhere.
That's right.
All right. Now, Raider Nation, it is time for Heidi's Heroes.
And with the season starting, I really, really wanted to pick a player to be the hero because, hey, game heroes are where it's at. And I got to give honorable mention. I'm going to give a game ball to Amik Robertson. That little dude, he had a good game against the Cardinals. He had an interception. He had some big stops. So, Amik Robinson, as hard as I've been on you, I got to give you a game ball. Get a hero honorable mention from me.
And this is a guy I don't think either one of us had making the 53-man earlier. I know I didn't, but...
I wasn't planning on it. Yeah. But this week's game hero is going to be a guy for another team. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this great article by Jeremy Reisman talking about Lions offensive lineman Dan Skipper. Dan Skipper has been through a lot, but it all came full circle when the Detroit Lions called on his name. 2 weeks ago, those of us who watched Hard Knocks, we saw offensive tackle Dan Skipper receive the bad news. For the sixth season in a row, he had been cut. Despite hanging around the league for that long, he had never made an initial 53-man roster, and the moment was too overwhelming for him to hold in the emotions. "Anything I can do?" Skipper said through tears, hoping to find an answer to his 6-year-long battle to find a spot on an NFL roster. "It's my 6th year in the league, and I've never made a team," Skipper said after the Detroit Lions win over the Washington Commanders on Sunday. See, I even called them the Commanders, not the Commandos.
There you go. You're making improvements there.
I know, it's tough. It's tough. You go in, and you're never quite good enough. You're not quite enough. You show up every day, and you think you're doing the right things, and just for whatever reason, it just doesn't quite work out. I think I've had 20 NFL contracts. They're not worth the paper they're written on, he said. His Hard Knocks story ended with him being cut, but his NFL story just hit a defining chapter during the Detroit Lions' 36-27 win over the Commanders. Shortly after being cut, Skipper signed to the practice squad, and after the Lions were hit with injuries to 4 of their interior offensive linemen, the Lions turned to Skipper, an unlikely hero. Skipper had never started an NFL game in his career. That's tough enough, but he had been practicing at tackle for nearly every snap as a pro. The last time he played guard in a non-preseason game was as a freshman in college. At 6'9", tackle is by far the most natural position for Skipper. But when Coach Dan Campbell had to decide who would fill in at left guard on Sunday, he turned to the player he trusted the most. "He knows our offense in and out. He knows all the positions," Campbell said. "Look, this isn't the easiest offense to walk right in and learn. We've got 2 new guards, and we just felt that Skip had a good understanding of it, and we felt like, even though he's never played guard in a game, we just felt like he was going to hold up. We trust him, I trust him, and he's a battler." Battle he did, against one of the formidable defensive interiors in the NFL, featuring first-round picks Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen. The Lions racked up 191 rushing yards, 8 yards per carry, and while Jared Goff was sacked 3 times on the game, none of them appeared to be a mistake on Skipper's part. Oh, and the longest run of the day from DeAndre Swift? Guess who was blocking downfield 15 yards down? Yeah, that was Skipper. "Trust is a funny thing," Skipper said after the game. "It takes years to build and seconds to break. I just try to keep putting my best foot forward every day. I think with this roster, that's all we're really trying to do. We're all just trying to get better every day. Whether you're a starter or a backup or a friggin' 4th tackle, doesn't matter. You're trying to get better every day and do what's asked of you, and to do that to the best of your ability." Ultimately, Skipper created a memory he's not likely to forget ever. His first NFL career start and a big win. He had a hard time finding the words to describe the moment. "It's been such a long road," Skipper said. 6 teams. And like I said, I've been cut all over. Just having my wife and kids here and everything else, it just really comes full circle. It's hard to explain. I don't know. It's kind of the first. It kind of makes everything all worth it. All the chaos and the trials. Having my family here and playing is just kind of the cherry on top. And Skipper, you had a great game on Sunday, and you are the kind of hero that this segment likes to salute. Thank you. You are Heidi's hero this week.
And, dreams do come true in different shapes and fashions. And I want to be one of the ones to really applaud Dan Skipper and also let him know. And I'm reaching out at this point to Detroit Lions fans as well, partly because we don't play you guys this year. But what a story it would be if you guys could make it back to the playoffs. And I'm pulling for you, and I'm pulling for Skipper as well. We'll see how that transpires. But like the Raiders, the Lions franchise has been down a long time and hasn't had a whole lot to smile about or roar about, as the case may be. But, maybe this is a turning point for that organization, and we sure are looking for a turning point for ours as well.
I'm always rooting for them. I mean, they've had the worst luck. Last year, they had such horrible luck. They had so many games in the bag, and they just could not put them away. They were heartbreaking.
And they had Barry Sanders for 10 years.
What a waste of a career. And I remember watching him play, and my God, the man could play. But yeah, I always root for the Lions. Unless they're playing us, I always got to root for them. So, Dan Skipper, you have embodied what this segment is about, and you are just the perfect hero for this week.
And we'll continue to follow you.
Yeah. And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KeblerPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Angria Trask on Silver and Black Ladies Night.
And if you haven't checked out the show yet, I really encourage you to do that. Last week, Peggy and Heidi really brought the knowledge, and of course, they'll probably have some things to say about this past week's game. So please tune in for that. Silver and Black Ladies Night, put it on your calendar. Make sure you go back and catch the episode after the fact. Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the regular season. So here's what we'd like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we could use on one of our upcoming episodes, and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us, 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are two easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, as several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank all of you for your continued support of the Raider Roots Project, and in a couple of weeks, I'll be unveiling some exciting news related to the show. So stay patient, Raider Nation, with the present, just as with the past. We're going to work through this thing together.
You guys follow T3 on Twitter. He actually went viral this last week. I was so proud of him. He took on Josh Dubow and made him look a little silly.
I love making Josh Dubow look silly.
It was great. As always, we will look forward to hearing from you, everyone. Until next time, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation. We are the only nation. And now it's on to Music City, hopefully to pick up that first win. So let's all stay together and say loud and proud, Raiders.